Welcome everyone to another episode of the JayWalkin podcast. I'm your host, is Jay, and we're taking one step at a time while telling one story at a time. Today is a special day, everyone. I have a special guest, but before I introduce him, I just want to kind of go into the theme that we're going to go in today. So, the podcast, the whole idea of this episode is all about fitness. Now, for those who know me personally or just know me professionally, they always talk about the gym constantly, whether it's like my improvements or just kind of bringing up some subjects of if I don't know anything, I could just ask them. Today, we're just gonna flush all that out and just incorporate again how anime for my own life and just watching it played a huge part in just my fitness journey. I'll just share a little quick story about that. So I know many people have like different people that they look up to, whether it's fitness influencers or just people in their personal life. I have those two along the way, but I know Naruto, Goku, Tanjiro and Astra, they play a part in my life. But before we get on to that, I just want to introduce a special guest. Now, for those who don't know, this is a guy who's pretty funny. He's always stating his opinions very cold-heartedly or even in a funny manner. He expresses his opinions, and also he loves to help people out because we work in the same, industry and residential. But I just want to give a huge shout out to being the first honorary guest of the JayWalkin podcast, Dave. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Dave, to the podcast. Even though they see you right now, but just welcome. Just welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's a very warm welcome, Jamal. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity. It is an honor to not just be here with you today, but to be the very first guest that you're having on the podcast. Very appreciative of it. And thank you so much for the warm welcome. You could have said a lot of things about me, but you picked some kind things to say.
I could have, but they're gonna get more into that like, as we go in the episode, probably. But I just want you to just give a chance to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, like Jamal was saying, I'm Dave. I'm a therapist, and Jamal and I work together and have worked together for over 2 years now, known each other, kind of passing by. And then when I kind of switched locations exactly where I worked, we spent a little bit more time together, talked about the gym, do a lot of trainings and all that stuff together, normally sit by each other if someone didn't take that space first. Yeah, I moved to Florida about 3 years ago. Been a licensed therapist for about 5 years now, which reminds me of how old I am. Been really big into fitness, the gym, weightlifting, somewhat healthy dieting, though that can always be better, for about 15 years now, which is another way of dating myself. Yeah, and we can kind of get into whatever direction you want to go with that. But that's just a quick glossary of who I am and what I'm kind of interested in.
I love it. I love it. And hopefully the viewers, just hearing that off alone just will get inspired just by again like what you just shared a bit.
Thank you.
And I just want to say again, again, I appreciate that you came on. And even though I mentioned about anime and how that plays a part, and I know you're not too well versed in it, but I'm glad you chose to come on the podcast and just hopefully you learn something from me and just like the stories I tell. And obviously, I'm just gonna learn from you and just kind of go with that. So again, thank you again for just coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Never really watched anime, never really got into anime, but I imagine kind of like the characters or the inspiration that you drew from anime is similar to kind of what I drew inspiration from growing up. So growing up in the 90s, like the super masculine figures were the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Sylvester Stallones, like the Rocky Rambo movies, the Predator movies, and just like jacked dudes just kicking butt, because I don't know if we can cuss on here. So they were kicking butt, kicking tushy, and just, super like strong, ripped, like just alpha dudes. And I just remember at a very young age being like, I want to be like that, minus the killing people thing.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, if you do curse, like, it's a natural thing. Obviously, this is like the official podcast. So I'll just say tone it down a little bit, but obviously be who you are and be who yourself. So
I'll censorship myself, but I appreciate that. I don't want you to have to edit anything out.
Listen, this is just like in real life. We're gonna go raw. That's it.
Perfect. Just go with that.
Yeah, just go with that. But it's pretty cool that you list off those like names of people. And I necessarily didn't grew up watching them, but I've seen their movies and I look back on like how like the male aesthetic, played a huge factor in that culture, and even played a little bit in the culture I grew up to. The only difference is I know I strayed away from TV media, and I started watching like Jet Li, Bruce Lee, and I was just watching again like the Rocky movies, and I just had like a blend. But what kind of really struck and kind of brought me to the forefront was anime. And again, just to give you a glimpse of it, there were some names like I just like Asta, Naruto, Goku, and Tanjiro, but it was more just like the physical sense for me. It was more of like that mental and spiritual battle that you go through just along with the fitness journey, but just in life in general. Because I know, for instance, Goku. For those who don't know, Goku is part of the Dragon Ball Z series. He's the main character, and his whole ideology. Granted, he may present dumb or like kind of not intelligent around those, but when it comes to battle IQ and just like his spiritual beliefs and just like the chi that he's like developing along the way, like he's such a powerful character, and he's like the embodiment of like never giving up. He's literally like the embodiment of just like continue to go, like because the Saiyan race, since I'm just explaining a little bit more in depth,
Sure.
his race, the premise of their race is mainly like each battle, each experience they go through, they get stronger and stronger. So, for instance, the first major battle I can think of is him versus Frieza. That version of Goku is significantly weaker compared to like when he fought against, Biru, which is the god of destruction. So it's like each time he like levels up, and whenever the scenario like plays out and just calls for it, like he instantly like needs to like train and like work on his spiritual like beliefs and just kind of like boost it all up so he could be physically strong in a sense. Because for me, the mindset of never giving up, like sure you could be physically strong, and I'm sure you'll experience this too, like when you're in the gym, right, and you're like lifting that last rep, like if you like let all the air out and you just like, "Ah, I just want to be done," of course you're gonna like fail that rep. But if you like just mentally push yourself to be like, all right, just get it up like as much as you can, whether you have assistance or not, and then you actually get it up, is mainly like that good feeling for me. So that's kind of how I like describe like Goku and like those characters. But I'm curious for you, like I know you mentioned those couple of names, but who was like the one person that brought you into the space of fitness?
Love that question. So originally it was my dad. My dad uh, got me into weightlifting at a very young age, like 13, 14, because I was always somewhat athletic for a, lanky, skinny white kid.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, in order to have any type of success past high school, you have to lift weights, get strong, do that. Because I was a very gangly, very ectomorph body type kid, getting pushed
Mhm.
around a lot because I just had no upper body strength at all. So he got me into weightlifting around like 13, 14. I didn't really like it, but it was one of those things where I'm spending time with dad, even though the thing that I'm spending time with him that I'm doing, I don't really enjoy. So I was so weak. It just, it's not fun when you're in the gym and you can only barely lift the bar and everyone else is,
Yeah.
doing a lot more than that. So I kind of just fizzled out with that when I got to college. I had some personal stuff going on, and then reconnected with a friend from high school and transferred colleges. And he got me back. Shout out Tyler West. He got me back into like a dieting, like agility drill, strength type of working out, and that really course corrected me after my year and a half of just a struggle, we'll put it. And then after college, since I didn't play sports anymore, the biggest thing I wanted to do was just to continue to kind of push my body, compete against myself, and just give myself a healthy physical coping skill. And then I found, don't know how familiar you are, but a fitness influencer called Ziz, rest in peace.
Mm. He
Um,
sounds so familiar. Like I don't know why. Like, but you said RIP, so RIP to that
yeah,
person.
he's been dead over a decade, but
Okay.
his influence lives on.
Okay, and that's pretty cool because again, like that name sounded so familiar, but it's like it's remiss of me. But what I kind of heard took away from that was you mentioned like how you started out like as like just a scrawny like kid, and you just had to get developed into a routine and like getting inspiration. And it seemed like you bulked up over time, and I'm just curious, what was that journey like going from you know the person you were to like now, like in the fitness journey?
Yeah, I remember when I was at a crossroads at about 18 years old, looking in the mirror and just being even more unhappy with how I looked than I usually was. Just being very skinny, losing what little definition I had because I was drinking indulging in illicit drug use at 18 in college, because I was 18 and in college, so why not?
Yeah.
But I remember just kind of looking in the mirror and being like, oh man, I do not like this at all. I want to do something about this. And then I got connected with better people, with the right people. Again, shout out Tyler West for just being a huge support when I really needed one at the time, between like 18 and 22.
Yeah.
And then, just as you can probably relate, the more effort you put into something like the gym or working out or even dieting, the more benefit you're going to get. And then it's almost like breadcrumbs, where like the more that you kind of pick up off the ground, the more you just go down that trail to get more breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. It's to the point now where I couldn't imagine not having like working out or weight training or even like a somewhat conscientious diet not be a part of what I do every day.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, especially like again, like I know for my own personal journey, like it's been like 3 years so far of just like coming from like again, like being like the heaviest I ever been, like far as like around like 324, and but it's mainly like mostly fat and just like little to like no muscle. Sure, there was like some like muscle there, but it's not like defined, and it's just like there for like used to hold me up. And then
Yeah.
like I transfer into like more of a leaner version of myself. And granted, that was a pretty cool like opportunity and time, but I already knew like soon as I like saw myself like losing like muscle mass as well, like I switched again to like, okay, let me go back to the bulking. But then I know for me, like with this journey, it has its ups and downs. Like I was always the greatest like calorie tracking, like, oh, like let me get perfect nutrients or like the cleanest like food that I can find. It was mainly like, okay, just get what I can have, and if I have to switch to alternate things, get chicken, whether it's fried or grilled, like at least it's chicken, not like crappy food or anything like that. And what you kind of describe again too, like plays a part in anime as well, what we call training arc, which is essentially like you go through like all the ups and downs and figure out what you can do for yourself, pinpoint like certain things like those breadcrumbs, like after you get a certain routine, just picking up slowly but surely. But you always have to go through like some sort of like desperation or pain like type of vibe, because I know I did that for myself. And the one character that comes up for me every time I think about that, every time I feel like giving up, is Rock Lee. Like it's from Naruto, so if you're not familiar, Rock Lee is basically the Bruce Lee of the universe. Like he
Okay.
doesn't have like the talent where it's like ninjutsu is basically, think of like magic but in the north, like in the ninja world, like instead of like throwing kunai stuff, they throw in a fireball. Like that's what ninjutsu is. He did not have that in his DNA whatsoever. The only thing he had was taijutsu, and the way I translate it is basically he knew how to throw hands. He just knew how to throw hands, and he was able to work out to his physical peak, like doing like 100 to maybe 1,000 push-ups, running around like constant like 500 like laps, and just sort of these type of training like methods. And it was this one cool moment where he basically wanted to give up, or he was just like, I can't do this. Like I don't have ninjutsu, I don't have genjutsu, which is basically playing like illusion mind tricks on you. That's what genjutsu is. And it was his teacher, who's also not talented like in anything besides taijutsu. His name is Mike Guy, and he basically told him like, listen, if this is what you have and this is what you're struggling with, you should put all your effort into this one thing, be so good at it that you're so undeniable from others. And it kind of reflected on me of like, again, I wasn't weightlifting at all. I was just mainly eating and just going outside for walks. I'd call that exercising.
Yeah.
But literally, like once I started picking up weights and went through that struggle of like, damn, I can't even curl like 35s consistently, it was just one of those things where I just kept at it. And now I'm kind of similar like you, like like literally yesterday, I literally went to the gym for the first time since like this transition I've been in, and it felt so good to kind of like actually re-experience that small struggle of like, damn, I can barely do this right now, but I know I'm gonna get back to a place not only where I was at, but I'm gonna be better. Like it's pretty cool, like how like even if fitness like that plays out, like having a training arc, even coming from you. Like, so I'm just curious for you, like what was like the most difficult thing like in your training arc?
Another great question. We might have to go back to that because you said something that I think is really valuable that we'd both be remiss if I didn't at least bring it back up.
Yeah.
It seems like you have a really I guess it's the right mindset, I would call it, though people may beg to differ,
Yeah.
of using yourself as a comparison and not kind of doing the thing that a lot of people do. I did sometimes, especially when I was younger, where you kind of scan the gym and compare yourself to other people. Because
Yeah.
what was really helpful for me to kind of get me to that next level and just bring more of a peace and calm into this lifestyle and experience was to realize I'm not competing against other people. I'm competing with myself and who I used to be.
Yeah.
Am I going to get better versus myself, or am I going to look around and, kind of just compare myself to everyone else and, try to feel better that way? And that doesn't really work. So
Yeah.
I just appreciate that reference that you said of, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back to where I was and then better. Because that's more important than, oh, I looked around and there were stronger people than me, so I got pissed off type of thing. But,
Yeah.
but if you don't mind asking the questions, I forgot it already.
I was just asking, like, what was like the most painful like experience during your training arc? Whether it's like, because you named comparison, so I can imagine that played a part in that, in your own training arc.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of insecurity, just being super skinny, being very, very weak, and then seeing everyone around me that's a male being stronger than me at almost everything was very difficult, especially when I was younger, where you're just a teenager and you're comparing yourself to everyone anyway because you're an insecure teenager.
Mm.
Again, just like the classic dude who got into working out story, breakup obviously was
Yeah,
a big influence in that
I know
because
that one way too well. I know that one all too well.
yeah, you don't get into working out seriously if you've never had your heart broken before. Um, so yeah, those were kind of the biggest influences without getting too specific of like
Yeah.
difficulties. And again, for me, once I adjusted from, oh, I want to be the most cut dude in the gym or the strongest dude in the gym or the guy who can squat the most in the gym while being over 6 feet tall. Because if
Yeah.
you're 5'6" and you can lift a lot, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Once I shifted from that mindset and was like, I just want to improve myself because nobody else's progress affects me. I actually want everyone else to be stronger than me, be better than me, especially at this age. That really helped shift my mindset, and it became more of a positive experience for me and something I wanted to do rather than something I felt compelled that I had to do.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that too. And it can't for me, like as I was listening to you, like there was moments where I did compare myself because again, like the
It's
complete
natural.
opposite of you, like I was like more of the fat kid of the group. And it's just like, oh shit, like I'm the one that know how to you like the great food spots. I know how to do other activities, but it's just like one of those things where I kept looking myself in the mirror. I was like, damn, like I'm getting mad at the world, but then I'm looking at myself in the mirror. It's like, oh, should I be mad at myself? Should I like look into it? But there was times where I didn't because I was like looking at like other celebrities, like for instance, like Rick Ross and Fat Joe at the time, where they was like getting like so many different accolades and women and just like money just for like being their size. And like I always go back to even Biggie Smalls, like Biggie Smalls, like not the greatest looking dude or anything like that, but yet he was getting like so many different plays and so many different opportunities. But then I kind of look back on that and just like, well, at that time it was completely different. They was doing different things than me, and I'm not part of like that industry or part of like those things where you have to like be a certain image or a certain like physique. And even now, like literally again, going back to yesterday, I literally compare myself to this one dude. He was in the back and he was like lifting like I don't know how much weight because he just had like his gear and he had his elbow pad. He was ready to go for it. But then I had a moment of clarity because there was a part of me that wanted to compare myself. But then I looked on the weight rack, right? And I was like, all I see was like 245s and like 125 on each side. And I'm just like, for a guy who looks like this, should be at least lifting more. But then it kind of reminds me of like, oh, like even the guys who are bigger than me is wanting to have like consistent weight. So of course they're gonna lift some things where it pushes them to their max, but it's more of like that. What's the term? I just learned this of like a few months ago. It's like time over like tension over time, I believe.
Time over
Some
tension, yeah.
time over tension where literally like he was like doing that and he only did like 6 reps, but I could tell like based off how he like got dealt with it, he was just like sweating from that. He was just taking his time with it and just kind of slowly doing it. It was actually cool to see because then the moment when I started comparing, and again, I'm looking at like what's actually happening, I had like a moment of clarity and like, oh, this person's just doing less weight, but they just trying to get the most out of it. So it's pretty cool to see that. Especially like, have you like you ever had moments like that when you just like saw something and you had like a moment of like, okay, I don't need to compare myself right now, like to this guy or this person right now.
All the time. Again, for those who may not know, I'm 5+ years older than you. We don't have to get into specifics.
We don't have to go.
So I've kind of, at least I believe, I've matured at a certain point in my journey. Where again, when I was younger, late teens, early, even to mid 20s, I did spend a lot of time being like, all right, if I'm not going to be the strongest, because I knew very early on, just with my
Yeah,
build, I'm never going to be, repping 450 on bench.
yeah.
So it was like, can I be the most shredded? Can I have the most
Mm,
aesthetic physique in the gym out of all the guys? And once I got pretty close to that, because I believe I did get close to achieving that, it was kind of like, okay, what's next? Because even if you do get to that level and you're not competing with the people at the gym that don't even know you're competing with them, what's
yeah.
kind of the point? And that's when I kind of shifted to, well, I want to, do better for myself because that's what got me into this journey to begin with. So,
Yeah. And I can say the same for me too. The only difference I'll say, like in comparison to stories and just kind of listening, was like I know for me in the beginning, I had like help along the way of just kind of help me out with the dieting or like certain workouts. And my buddy, like to this day, he will tell me like you should try hit workouts because hit workouts is a fast pace and it's you're able to like get a lot out of it. But granted, I told him straight up like I'm gonna throw up if if I do these sorts of workouts and I try. And it's just one of those things like, like it's not the greatest feeling, but it's like one of those things like pains that you have to go through because without like pain, there's no growth, at least in
oh,
my
100%.
experience, especially again in our training arcs where you have to go through that. You literally, like you said, like the breakup, the again, not trying to do it off rip, but comparing yourself to other people. But then once you like, okay, if I can't be like this version, let me try this route. And that was similar for me. Instead of me being like the most shredded or like leanest guy, in my head, I was like, okay, let's try to do as much heavy lifting as possibly can, but also look great, for my size. Instead of being like completely fat, let's try to be a little husky. And then going from husky to being a little bit more built. And instead of being more built, let's add more muscle. So that's how I at least try to like track it and just had those moments during those arcs. But it literally came with just those experiences of like comparing and just being like, damn, like I wish I can lift this amount, or I can do this, or I could be shredded as this, or I wish I can eat, X, Y, and Z like all the time, but I can't do that because I'm like, then I'm just going back to the same patterns and habits of just, what I was doing. And then that gonna wind me looking like that. And that's something I do not want to do. Is that any like fear that you have of like going back to that scrawny, kid, however you spin it?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what I said. Not necessarily. Maybe subconsciously, there's a part of me that still believes at times or in certain situations I'm still that skinny, nerdy 14-year-old kid. But I would say overall that's not a fear of mine. You also mentioned that I think is another important point is having realistic goals for yourself and not wanting to like drop, you didn't say this, but just an example, like dropping 100 pounds in like 3 months type of thing,
Yeah.
or, going up 200 pounds on your bench. It's like if you set those type of goals for yourself, that's great long term. But if you set that out as I want to hit this sooner rather than later, you're going to miss all the steps along the way and probably just get frustrated or make it a lot more difficult for yourself. So being patient and having smaller, easily obtainable short-term goals is definitely the way that I would encourage people to go about it. Because the old expression "Rome wasn't built in a day" is very
Yeah.
true when you're talking about your dream physique. That's not going to be built in a day either.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that too, just to bring like the anime aspect of it too. Like literally the main character is not going to be the strongest in the first episode unless you like intentionally made it that way. Like most of the time, like anime characters, just going back to Naruto because that's my favorite beloved one, literally like started out as the kid who was an orphan and shunned away from the his entire village, like no family, no relatives, anything. Everyone knew him as just a demon fox boy, and then literally you see him go through these ups and downs and people disliking him going through times where he's doubting himself and just like going through so much emotion where you feel for the character of like if he turned evil, of course it makes complete sense. But at the end, he just triumphed and just became like a Hokage because his whole dream is to become Hokage. That's one of those goals where it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen like like how you say Rome wasn't built in a day. It took years upon years of wisdom and just mistakes and just going through his own emotional trials and tribulations to lead to that point. Same for me with anime, like not even just anime, but just in the gym as well. Because I know for me, like when I started out in the gym, I was just like, damn, all right, I only can do like 15 minutes because I'm like, I'm just in winded. I don't know what I need to do, and I don't know the correct workouts, and I have to like watch YouTube and try to emulate it on like whatever shit, like in the mirror just in front of me, just like, okay, do dumbbells like this way, but you can also do it this way. And it's just, it was so much information like going on. But as time went on, like I noticed I was not only physically getting better, but mentally I was in a space where I went from like, fuck this, fuck the world, I don't care about anything, to like, okay, I care a little bit more about myself. Like I could care about, if people see me as a certain way, like, oh, you look great, I'm like, oh shit, thank you. Or you need to like continue to work on this. Like, okay, take that opinion and just be like, okay, let me just use what I can get from it, but then just push it out, because that is like negativity that can ruin progress. So I'm curious for you, like, how did like fitness, help with your mental, state and just mentality?
So much. That's another really good question. Did you just come up with these, or you wrote these down like the past couple?
This is literally on the fly.
Uh, you must ask questions for a living or something. These are pretty good.
I am a clinical coach.
That's fair. I got to pay the bills with my questions. Um, yeah, it did help with my mental health and just overall, mentally, emotionally, every type of subcapacity you can kind of ascribe to weightlifting or the physical growth. It probably got, yeah, I would actually say it went to an unhealthy degree at one point where I was getting on the scale every day because I wanted to gain weight. It was the opposite problem with people who were scale obsessive. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was trying, frustrated that the number wasn't going up.
I was frustrated when the lumber wouldn't go down. I
Yeah,
can
that's
understand
most
that.
people's experience. I just had the opposite, but still relatable of calorie counting, carb counting, um, literally staring in the mirror for 20 to 45 minutes every day in my early 20s, just kind of honing in on little aspects of myself that I didn't like. Oh, my chest is uneven.
Yeah.
I have a thing where I only have 7 abs instead of 8 because my bottom left one never formed. So just trying to lose as much fat as possible, but still gaining muscle, which is very difficult to do naturally, and just wondering why I couldn't get that 8th ab. Just being very critical of myself, to the point where I probably got way more insecure before it got better.
Yeah.
Even people giving me valuable, "Oh, you look great" feedback, or how do I get like you? All of that was I just perceived as criticism because I didn't believe any of that of myself at the time. But
Yeah.
fortunately, as I got a little bit older and became less obsessive with it, it actually helped become more of a healthy hobby rather than kind of an unhealthy addiction at one point.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that too as well, because I know there's one day in particular that comes out. I was just watching anime and I was like comparing myself to like a character on there. Uh, his name is like Choji. He was like a similar build to what I was, but as he got older, he got a little bit much slimmer, but he still carried that frame. And I was questioning his character, like, yo, like why out of all this years, like you've been training, you've been probably doing whatever you did in the background, yet you still look like that. Why? And then I started to go in the mirror for myself and like, okay, I have this body frame. Like, why is it not moving? Like I'm seeing significant change. Like my arms got bigger because I always like to have like huge arms, because in the culture I was in, like arms was like the thing, and chest was like the predominant thing where it's like if you can flex it, like you were a flex. So that's why I was so focusing on like arms, chest, and then if you have a great back, I just learned like the older you get, the more you're gonna rely on your back on like different things. Now I don't know if that's fully correct, but it was like if you have a strong back, it'll be easier for you like later on as you get older. At least that's what I've like discovered. But I was comparing myself and I always look at my stomach. Now, granted, I'm more comfortable in my stomach now and how I look right now, but back then it was a huge struggle of like, okay, why I'm not losing weight, why this is not going anywhere. And then it got to the point where I was actually losing weight, but since my body, if you coming from a bigger person and you're shrinking down, like obviously you'll have like loose skin, or you just have like those like fats, but it's really just like your mainly like your skin. Because I can press on it right now and it's like more muscle than I intended to like imagine, so to speak, but it's just covered up by like layers of like where my stomach was like so hard and like sticking outward versus how is it flat, but then it still kind of got a little jiggle to it. So it was just had me questioning. And then I think one of the shows I was watching, it was, I can't think of the anime, but it was some part where literally it was like questioning that person about like who they are and stuff. And then literally later on, he went back to his apartment, did the exact same thing I did. And then you just see a training montage of him just like working out. And granted, in anime, the years sped up to like maybe like 2 or 3 episodes. But next thing you know, he's like this jacked, skinny, like lean muscle type of guy. And it made me kind of sad. I was like, damn, I could have that sort of moment, but it's not realistic. So I took a step away from anime and kind of actually looked at myself, and the mental capacity that I had was limited. But my best friend, he was telling me like, listen, you are who you are, just work on your strengths and just improve what you can. And to this day, I kind of hold that mindset into just like, oh, this is not realistic to kind of aim for. So that's what at least helped my mental headspace. Like, granted, to cultural popular belief, anime kind of brought up that insecurity, but I always look at it as a great thing because without me seeing that, I wouldn't probably get as far as I did now when it came to that. So even though anime kind of brought up the insecurity, it kind of just helped shaped who I am right now. Kind of similar to what you said about like your struggles about mental, of like how that comparison of like, okay, I'm looking great, but then became a bad and like bad headspace of like keep checking those calories, keep checking that scale. Because I've been stepping on that scale every single day when I was doing it. So I hit 270. I was like, all right, I hit my goal. And then obviously once you hit the goal and you visually see it, it's like, okay, what next? And then that's when I like reverted back to old ways.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Once you start comparing yourself to like cartoons or action figures or like movie characters, then you're
Yeah.
putting yourself in dangerous territory. So
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely will. You will definitely put yourself in that dangerous territory, especially when you like see the movies now and look at behind the scenes. It's like, okay, that's some wire work. Okay, they can do this, but I'm like, they're at physical peak where it's necessary and required. I'm literally in a space and a environment where I don't need to like do 3 flips just to get to my desk, So, or I'm not fighting like a bad guy in broad daylight, so I don't necessarily need to know all those things.
not with that attitude, you're not.
Now that, oh man, maybe next time I'll try to flip in to my desk, or maybe during Tuesday supervision I'll flip.
There you go. I'm dying to see that. Dying to see that.
It's never
Um,
gonna come.
Again, it's slightly different because I am a few years older than you, maybe older than I'd like to admit.
Yeah.
But when I got really into it, I mean, I'm sure cartoons and movies, of course, they've been talking about the effect on men's body image for 40 years of
Yes.
like superheroes and all
Hmm.
the celebrities that take steroids and get jacked for a role, and then everyone's like, "Oh,
Or
I want to look like
or
that."
dehydrate themselves for like
Yeah.
2 or 3 shots, and then they have to literally like replenish or maybe go to the hospital.
The biggest thing when I really got into it was all the fitness influencers and photoshopping their pics. I
Mm,
remember that was kind of like a social media scandal when they had certain
yeah.
brands and influencers got caught photoshopping. It's like, oh, okay, no wonder I'll never look like that. It's because I don't know how
Yeah.
to use Photoshop.
Yeah, I definitely seen that too. Like it was around like in 2010s and going
Yeah,
into 2012, where literally like every time you go on Instagram, everyone's just like putting like a filter on their photo or like making themselves look lighter than they need to be and taking away like, cellulite or like stretch marks. But then for the guys, it's like, okay, give him a little bit of a narrow like Dorito waist, kind of like buffalo those muscles a bit. Or
yeah.
like it has spray tan already on and they just kind of like using that as a way to kind of post and just get more likes. Especially, and again, I'm completely like new to this, but I know every time I go on YouTube and see like a fitness influencer or someone who did like bodybuilding, I think his name is C Cucumber, something like that. I can't think of his name, but he was literally a 6-time champ, like in a row, back to back of like body lifting. But you can see the excruciating pain of like having to have a strict diet, having to work out 3 or 4 times a day. But then if you work out that 5th day, you may injure yourself, and that's going to affect your progress. And for some of them who are, taking steroids, where they say, "Oh, I'm natty or not," like taking steroids and just going into the gym, and if like literally to this day, like it got to the point where I'm seeing now where like kids like around like 20 or at least my age are like harming themselves with steroids early on because this body image of a like what a guy is supposed to be or how he looks like comes to play. That's why I always hate that. I don't know if you ever experienced this debate of dad bods versus like fucking active bods, like how they like. What is your take on that? Dad bods versus any other bod in the world?
I'm very passionate about this as someone who has always had abs. Genetically, even when I wasn't working out and was rail thin, I had abs. So it's all genetics. It's not really any hard work that I've done, thankfully.
Yeah,
I'm very very passionate about active bods being more attractive.
yeah.
That might be a hot take because I obviously don't know what women want, but I would
Well,
say what I would want.
who does at this point?
Yeah, if you hack that secret, Jamal, write a book and just give me 5%. But yeah, I mean, I would say active bods for sure. But what
Yeah,
do I know?
I don't even know because at this point I played both parts where I was like the I guess severe dad bod where you like not really working out and stuff, but now I've been like working out and putting a little bit more muscle on and just looking better than I used to be. I don't know, to be honest, but I always say
You
I
got to pick.
represent.
No, you can't cop
Yeah,
out like that. You
I
got
know.
to pick.
I'm not gonna cop out, but I always believe it. I at least oh God, I may get flack for this, but I believe in dad bods only because there's improvement to happen. Because nowadays, people's idea of a dad bod is literally like what? Damn, what's the movie? Like think of a guy who has like all the ripped aspects of like being jacked, but just have a stomach. Like it's so unrealistic for many people where dad bod can look like me or dad bod can look like even you compared to like other people who's like maybe stronger or have more like lean muscle mass. So it's like I always say dad bods because there's more room to be like, okay, you saying dad bod, but there's plenty of dad bods out there that's like also active compared to like the active bods where yes, there's plethora of that, but then it's like it's only for my at least like opinion, it's so like there's the ceiling is like so high because you don't know what can happen. Someone could be natty, someone could be not natty, but then with a dad bod, it's like you know what you're expecting, but there's improvement. At least that's how I look at it. But if I want to stake a claim, fully fine. I'm saying dad bods. That may be a hot take for you, but I'm saying dad
That's
bod.
fine. That's fine. I'm not going to tell you which body you should like more.
That's the point I'm trying to say. Because I know, again, just how the media is now. It's like if you go to anime, it's literally like a big ass dude, like who's probably like you wouldn't expect to be like strong or like athletic, but they're just moving. Like that's cool to see because back then when I was watching anime, they always display like the fat kid as like, oh, like just someone who's useless or just a smart one, but don't get no one, has a bunch of acne, or if it's like something like of a crazier anime, like it's always the big guy who has like the trace of like, oh, you can't hurt me if you punch me and you're gonna bounce off. It's just kind of gave like a weird, like just a bad look in my opinion. But now in days where there's a lot of animes where literally it takes off like a form and it shows like people either progressing again like much leaner and much better, but in a more healthy way versus like skipping a bunch of episodes, like just to be like, all right, this could be like 5 episodes worth and be like, nah, we're gonna squeeze it into 2. It's
3 years later.
yeah, 3 years later, I'm just like, it doesn't work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. It's just crazy again, like just kind of think about how anime plays, at least for me, a huge part into fitness. But also it seems like there's parts in your journey where literally like I'm thinking about so many anime arcs or so many character growths and developments and shifts that literally will play out into anime that shows up. Because there's literally an anime called I can't think of the name, but his name is Mash. Like his name is Mash. So his whole thing is all about strength training, working out, and he's being like the peak like physique of like what a man could be. And in a world full of magic where everyone's like kind of lazy and just like rely on like something else to kind of get their dirty work done, he is fooling people by like using his physical traits. Now, granted, I'm using this example, so it's unrealistic, but everyone's like flying on brooms through magic. He's literally flying on his broom by just constantly kicking the air. But that's how strong he is that he's holding himself up like on a molecular level, like in the air. or he's punching someone, they don't recognize like, oh, that's actually him punching, but they like feel like a huge force like of air around it just to kind of hit them. So it's kind of cool, like again, like just comparison, like how you like share your story, and it kind of brings up like these characters and moments for me. And it's like maybe fitness and anime, is not too far off.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is someone made an anime about my life story, and I'm not getting any type of royalties from it.
Well, I mean, it could be. There's a lot of fitness animes out there, but it just depends on the right one. But there's always characters too who always like the loudmouth. They always like speak their mind, but they are physically gifted. So who knows? You may need to start calling Crunchyroll and be like, "Hey, I need some shares in some Black Clover. Like this kid is like working 10 times a day, can like carry heavy things. Like I need some credit."
Physically gifted loudmouth. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hey, well, hey, that is Asta for you. That is Asta for
I've
you.
been good. I've been behaved though.
Hey, you have character growth.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's
I wanted to be respectful and take this seriously since you were kind enough to offer me to be the first guest. I wanted to be as respectful and as serious, but also myself as possible. So
yeah,
that's why you're
and
not getting much of a loudmouth.
yeah, but here's the thing: even if whether you choose to to do that or not, I'm gonna be honest. Like this whole platform I'm like building on is literally just to be who you are and be as loud as you are, or be passionate as you are in certain dynamics and certain conversations. Because at the end of the day, like as we're just walking, in this life, you know, we always try to limit it ourselves. It's kind of like how, you know, one of my good buddies that also work with us he says, we always like whisper our accomplishments, but we are so loud with our flaws and like things that we're ashamed about ourselves. So like if you say you're a loudmouth and you're just like, that's natural you, I always tell people go for it because you only got one life, you only taking one step in this journey. So you might as well just be who you are throughout the whole entire way. So but I
Yeah,
appreciate you taking it seriously, like how you said.
yeah. I wanted to be respectful, and yeah, if it's going to be on the internet, I don't want you or me to get canceled. So,
Yeah, I mean, hey man, that's why we are gonna start the jaywalking after dark. So
oh, okay,
if
all right.
whenever
Is
that
that going to be like
starts,
blood talk?
that's no, it won't be like plug talk. It won't be like plug talk, but
Okay,
the unfilteredness of it, it
okay.
definitely will be like a plug talk. But this is actually pretty fun. I need to have more guests more often. So
I set the high bar, so good
you
luck to
you
whoever
did
comes on after me.
hey, you set the bar. So whoever comes after you literally have to live up to the expectations and the hype because I already know most of our listeners and watchers, if you're watching on YouTube, they're definitely going to enjoy this, especially when we're announcing, hey, this Friday coming up is a podcast with me and Dave on
This
it.
Friday, like July 4th.
Yes, this Friday.
Oh, sick.
I'm always Friday, 7 a.m. All just is already gonna be scheduled and already up there.
What a
So
day on July 4th, a holiday too.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely gonna be a great one. That's so ironic too. Now I'm thinking about it, but I'm not gonna say for the viewers. I'm gonna save that for another time because,
That
but
works.
you know what I'm thinking, right?
I could probably take a pretty close guess, but we can save
Okay.
that for jaywalking after dark.
Yes, let's say that. This was pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie, and I will say this too. You also set the bar because out of all the episodes I'm thinking about right now, we've are the longest episode compared to the other ones. Because right now, live, just to let you guys and Dave know, we're at 43 minutes, and typically I always range around 20, maybe 30, but not to the standard of like almost going on to an hour.
Yeah, it didn't
So
even feel that long. I'm actually kind of shocked. It felt like 20, 25 minutes, but time
yeah.
flies with good conversation and okay people.
Okay, people. Yeah, that's true. Damn, Dave, you had to say that. I had a comment, but I have to say it for Jaywalking After Dark. I
That
have
works.
to
That
say
works.
it.
Write that down.
I will. I will. All right, man. Is there anything else you would like to like say before we end this podcast? Whether it's just a little bit of knowledge about anime or just like your journey and just adding more to it, anything that you want to end off with?
No, just for anyone who is into any type of exercise, physical fitness thing, whatever level you're at, or even if you're kind of just dipping your toes in the water because you're apprehensive to do it. It probably saved my life getting pretty serious into weightlifting. So I encourage anyone who's able to running, weightlifting, cardio, any type of maybe nonchalant sport, just doing something to be active, get your heart rate up. Get out of the house, just do something active and physical because you have no idea what type of positive, profound effect that can have on you. So I just want to encourage everyone, whatever level you're at, to get out there and do something active. And I want to thank you, Jamal, for extending the invitation and having me on and being a great conversation. And, God bless you, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. And I appreciate the message you said because just to incorporate with again anime, just for those who are so big into it, I will say like for me, working out was such a huge game changer for me. Like I went from hating myself, hating the world around me, and being the villain, in this arc that I was into, being actually like, the protagonist of okay, there's some level of healthy, ways of like, okay, I could be hard on myself, but not to the point where I'm obliterating myself or obliterating other relationships around me. It's just so important for you to stay active. And whether you take fitness seriously or you watch anime as a way to kind of cope with things, you can blend the two together. You can work out and be consistently active while also enjoying a piece of media that gives you some inspiration and some hope. So I hope that you take away this conversation for both Dave and I is just whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're into, use it as a way to motivate you. And if you can profit from it, that's cool. But if not, just keep doing what you do for yourself in a healthy way and can just continue to strive. Even if you don't know what the hell you're gonna get yourself into, go within a mindset where you're just going to be learning and just be positive and just learn from it, dude, and just continue to keep moving forward. Because just like this podcast, I always tell you guys, whether you make connections, whether it's an anime or fitness, everyone is telling their story and everyone's just walking in this life one step at a time. Thank you, Dave, for coming on as the first
Thank
honorary
you.
guest. And I appreciate you guys listening and watching. Until next time, keep on walking, keep telling your stories, and most importantly, be positive, be happy, be you. It's your boy Jay, and it's the JayWalkin podcast, and we're out. See ya.
Thank you. Appreciate
No
it, Jamal.
problem. Appreciate you. All right, guys, we're signing off.